Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of
Ghetto.
My name is Hans
I'm Edward.
and we are your hosts for now and forevermore.
Or until one of us dances the night away into the stars.
I love positivity, especially after everything we've been going through in the last week. And interestingly enough, it also links up to things we're going to be speaking about this episode. So if you like to dance and you like music, stay tuned.
Yeah.
Now, with that in mind, welcome to one of the internet's best places for
Gaming, entertainment, technology, lifestyle, news previews, and everything else wrapped up in the wonderful geeky.
lidocaine pill.
See how difficult that is, Hans. Do you see now? The moment it's on you. Anyway.
Yeah. Do we even have lidocaine in South Africa?
I have no idea what that
Basically,
even is.
long story short, it makes you feel good.
Well, we have different things like that in South Africa. So,
I suppose so.
yeah.
For those of you who are watching the video, as Edward can see, my cat is being a little bitch and keeps pushing open my studio doors. Is what it is.
It is what it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Gettle 65 Season 2, Episode 23. We do hope you enjoy this episode, but before we begin, Edward, how are you doing?
Good. Got a headache. Let's hope it's not worse because it's been persisting for 2 days now. How about you?
Okay, I am generally quite good, although I
Okay.
suppose we should say that many people in SA are currently not all that great. We won't go, we don't really want to discuss it too much. It's just a bit of a tumultuous time that we're experiencing in the country. And for those who have been impacted, our hearts go out to you all. And we do hope that on some level, there's some form of help or assistance or restitution along the way. But on a happier note, Edward, it is time for the question of the week, and I see we have nothing written here, so we're just going to go with what we spitballed before we began the
Yes.
episode.
That's a good idea.
That is, if you could use CRISPR to genetically modify your genes to some degree. Okay, but let's say you already as you are. So not like at birth or that kind of a thing. So as you are already at the moment. What would you use CRISPR for to edit? Like what would you edit within yourself? Not necessarily to make you a better person, just in any way. Like what would you use CRISPR for, if possible? And bear in mind, just to be more specific, we're not talking about like we're not talking about like mutant abilities now. I mean, we're talking about realistic CRISPR use.
Well, what is mutant abilities if not just basic evolution?
Well, you see, the thing is, I'm talking about things like flight. It's not like you're going to magically
No one's
CRISPR
going to
yourself
magically
to fly.
develop flights or fire fingers or whatever. Well, to answer your question, Hans, I actually don't know. I was thinking maybe, like, many people, you know that ability, that thing your skin does when you're in water for a while, it goes all pruny.
Oh yes,
You know that's actually an adapting mechanism for your skin to be able to grip easier underwater. Now, I was
Okay,
thinking
alright.
of something similar to that effect for like rock climbing. Now, I'm not thinking calluses that you develop when you do rock climbing. I'm thinking
Yes.
like something that adapts when your hands know you're rock climbing and stuff, that kind of thing.
Okay, that's
Because
interesting.
because it's not a stronger grip in that sense, but it gives you just better handle when you need to grab things. And I think that'll come in
Yes.
handy in many things
I
in
mean,
life.
okay, but that's also now assuming you have the ability to turn it on and off.
It's more like a brain thing, I think.
Well,
like
you see,
brain.
that's the interesting thing about it, right? Is we've just spoken about the water one, where that's just automatic. You don't get a choice; it just happens, and you have
Yes.
alleged better grip underwater, right?
Yes.
So if you've never had this ability before,
Mm-hmm.
how would your body know how to adapt to it?
See,
Anyway,
that's CRISPR for
Okay,
you.
but no, it's not. Well, I mean, not really. Okay,
It's a new gene.
So I haven't answered it myself.
Okay.
Mainly because I didn't really have an answer to it, I suppose. But I
Mhm.
think for me, it would be to CRISPR a super immune system. So I could just never get sick.
See, that's. I was
think,
thinking that as
to
well,
me is
but
more
it
like
seems like the
effective.
go-to. It
But of
seems like
course,
what we're trying to do anyway.
What else would there be? I mean,
Well,
my understanding of the way that like CRISPR works, it's not like you can. I mean, you can't. At least my understanding anyway is that you can't do things like give yourself diamond skin.
no.
You know, it would have to be more somewhat realistic. Like maybe you like the fat thing. Remember the fat gene from last week's episode,
Mhm.
whereby you could turn that gene off and then never get fat.
See, so
You know, it's more
right
that
now you're
kind
saying
of
you
a
could turn it
practical
on and off,
application.
and you never get fat.
No, but it's turned off. You don't get the
But
option
the
of
thing
turning
is,
it on and off.
We're already trying to get rid of sicknesses and strengthen our immune systems. So I'm thinking of if I had a choice to change, to give me a gene any type, and it's realistic, I would go that route.
Okay, then maybe if it look, you see, the whole thing about it is that I don't think it can directly influence physiology. So I don't think. Look, well, actually, it depends. It depends. You could maybe change your hair color, but why would you want it? Well, I mean, not okay. Each to their own, I suppose. If you wanted a gene that can allow you to pick any hair color at will, and that's what you grow.
That sounds like a mutant ability.
But you see, but this is what I'm saying though. So CRISPR is really grounded in reality. It's not about
of course,
all of a sudden giving
real.
you something that's going to be crazy. Like when I'm talking about hair color, I'm talking about it just grows out a different color. It's not like you can just at a flick of a finger you have blonde hair now and then you have purple hair or whatever the case is. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, because you change your pigments or whatever.
Well, yes, and that takes time to grow out and so on and so forth. Maybe actually, this might be an interesting one, right? If we could CRISPR other things into us, right? So what if you could CRISPR the ability for an octopus to camouflage into your skin?
See, but if you've never had
But
that before, how would you?
But you see, that's exactly. See, that's my other point now. You see,
So,
we need to. You know what? We need to really understand CRISPR a little bit better. Like, can you CRISPR brand new things in, or is CRISPR more like just unlocking your current genetic capability?
well,
Because if that's the case, then I would like to have steroid-like muscles and strength, and and no fat. Thank you, and perfect eyesight.
How I understand CRISPR at the moment is obviously all experimental, but it's modifying genes to do new or other things. As far as I know, that's what CRISPR currently is trying to do, especially with the immune system. So if you can modify your skin to just go pruny whenever you rock climb, I guess, but
Actually,
more like a calluses pruny, I think that's still realistic.
I don't know how I would then maybe change mine to be avoid skin cancer, and by that I don't mean and by that I don't mean CRISPRing in the inability to get cancer.
No,
I mean CRISPRing in
just fighting.
You're a melanin level that doesn't change my pigment, but allows me to no longer be susceptible to UVB and UVA.
See, that's I dig that.
See, like that. That would be cool, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know. We know nothing about CRISPR.
No.
It must be said.
No, don't be BSing our listeners now. We know enough. It's just that it's new and novel that the understanding of exactly what it can do, they still don't know. So, it's not like we're talking out of turn here, because it's entirely possible that you could CRISPR a baby before they're born to be a certain way, like even a different color.
Yeah, like the island kind of shit.
Our question, exactly. Our question wasn't that. Our question was you right now. If you could CRISPR one thing out or into your body, what could it be? So then from a realistic perspective, enhancing your melanin strength is possible, I would imagine. Yeah. More so even than maybe changing how your skin reacts. I mean, because anyway, it doesn't matter. Either way, I think your thing is very cool. And I think if you have to pair that with my one, you could rock climb all day and you don't have to worry.
See? Which means our babies would be like super rock climbers,
Well,
So-
look, with this question in mind, we'd love to hear from all of you. What would you CRISPR? And
Yeah.
please, not things like, bigger penis or bigger boobs. That's not like actual genetic differences. Like maybe
I would
different
CRISPR a
eye
bigger
color.
penis, but
I mean, if you need to, sure.
But yeah, we're talking obviously about things more like what would you use every day? What would be practical? What would be
another cool thing, right? Might be, CRISPRing in the inability to never get a cavity,
yeah, actually.
right? And I assume
That's a
that
good
might then
idea.
even go to enhancing bone strength. So you could almost have like an adamantium-like skeleton. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just super bones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, either way, I
Of
suppose
course.
it's something to make you happy at the very least.
Yes.
A little bit like music. Wouldn't you agree, Edward?
I would. Music is the language of life.
And
So
happiness, according to science. So, according to a group of researchers from the University of Missouri in the United States, they have determined what is the happiest song on Earth. Now, I have a few issues with the study, but with that aside, let's just get to what they say it is, and we'll speak about it, and then I'll tell you what I think about it. Now, for most people who enjoy music, it's obvious that music can make you happy. Because, Edward and I have spoken in the past about music and frisson, right? How I'm one of those people that is susceptible to like a really incredible sounding piece of music that'll give me goosies.
yeah.
And so, that makes sense that music can maybe make you sad, it can make you happy, that kind of thing. And, with that in mind, like I said, scientists decided, okay, well, if it can make you happy, what would the happiest song on Earth be? And they went through actually creating a scientific formula to determine this. And they looked at over 126 songs over a 50-year period, and they surveyed 2,000 British people, right? So that already should let you know one of my issues with the study, because it's not a universal. So, for them to say the happiest song on Earth is a little bit misleading, because you've only sampled 2,000 Caucasian British people, or maybe not Caucasian, just 2,000 British European people. And, that means it's European culture, which therefore means it's Western culture. So what about the East and Africa? Anyway, that's all I wanted to get through that with. And anyway, so what they did is they looked at a variety of songs. In particular, they looked at the beats per minute, the key, the theme, and then they also analyzed the lyrics. And can you guess which group came out on top? I won't tell you the name of the song just yet, but I'm just wondering if you can guess which group.
What do you mean, which group?
Group, like songwriters, group of people, artists.
Which artist came out on top?
Yeah.
Is it something stupid like Rebecca Black?
No.
Or Justin Bieber?
Okay, so think British, even though I think he was British. I can't remember if he was British or not. Anyway, Queen. Queen came out on top.
He was
All right.
British.
Okay, there we go. So he came out on top. In particular,
cool.
it was the song "Don't Stop Me Now." Right?
That's
everybody
okay.
like. Can you immediately like? Yeah. I get that.
I can
get that.
dig
you
that.
know?
Yeah.
So what they did is they looked at this, and then they, through some sort of form of a scientific analysis, they determined that the average tempo of a feel-good song, specifically from pop, is around about 118 beats per minute. However, this particular song, "Don't Stop Me Now," is 140 to 150 beats per minute.
So
therefore
it's
leading some credence to the fact that, the higher the beats per minute, the happier the song feels, which in some respects, I'm like, definitely not some electronic music. In particular, dubstep. Like when you hear that, I feel like I just want to like scream because it's so like
Like, it's more trance than anything else, and
Anyway, it was just I thought it was fascinating. But now you see, so this is my whole thing: is that I'm this is a cool study and all, but it's misleading to say the happiest song on earth, and as maybe in that respect, it's not possible to get enough of a sample size for everybody on earth, and maybe. The Chinese and Indian populations, which have some of the largest populations on Earth, would have wildly different music, But with that said, it would have been nice if the study was expanded and maybe they went to each continent or, bevy of a lot of people, determined what the top song was there, and then decided if there was a correlation between them. You see? And then I suppose you might have to then look into the cultural differences, like what actually makes people happy in India and China versus, Europe. Anyway, I'm thinking a little bit too much into it now. Basically, if you like Queen, you'll be happy to know that this particular song, Don't Stop Me Now, is allegedly one of the world's happiest songs.
Okay, that's cool.
And we're not going to be sampling it in the podcast because copyright infringement.
We don't want to be DMCA'd. Not today.
Now, of course, another little tidbit that we just decided to throw in is something to do with Bluetooth, because we all know that 90% of the time, if you're listening to something, it's most likely from a mobile device, because we do live in the 21st century, and generally a speaker connected to a mobile device is connected via Bluetooth. If you are more fortunate than most, you might even have a Wi-Fi enabled speaker, but we're just talking about Bluetooth right now. And with that in mind, I'm very curious to know, Edward, how much do you know about the Bluetooth symbol?
I know it's a rune, and that's it. That's literally my extent of the Bluetooth symbol.
Well, that's more than most, I would imagine.
To be fair, I only know it's a rune because I got into Norse mythology quite early on.
That's very cool.
Along the same time that I got into Roman mythology and Greek mythology. So, but I don't know that as much as I do Roman.
Okay, fair enough. Well, look, you're spot on. It 100% has to do with symbology. In this sense, from what I understand, the history of Bluetooth, the name, began when engineers Jim Cardach and Sven Mattisson, hopefully I'm saying those names correctly, they met over beer and they realized that truthfully, they needed something catchy for their newest technology. So as with all things, it started off with two mates talking and wondering what could we call this that will make people speak about it all the time, right? And so their conversation apparently led to the history of Vikings, which makes sense, given their own heritage, including the king of Denmark, who allegedly was called Harold Bluetooth Gormson. And therefore, through those discussions, they thought, well, why not call it Bluetooth? Because apparently this king had a dead tooth, which was said to have a giant dark blue-gray color. And that's why he had the name Bluetooth. And so a little bit more into their history, it turns out that this Bluetooth king, he was credited for uniting Norway and Denmark. And so the engineers who developed Bluetooth thought that this was befitting of the technology because it would allow different devices to communicate with each other, in particular like the PC and the mobile phone. Hey? Don't you think that's cool,
super cool
in a way? Right?
And I only just remembered that Harold Bluetooth is in Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Is he really?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Because you know him as King Harold. You meet him like at the beginning of the game, I think.
And then...
And that's Harold Bluetooth, I found out. I Googled it just to make sure, and it is Harold Bluetooth. It is the guy. No, that's cool.
So cool. Okay, well, there we go. So essentially what the two engineers wanted to do was to give the technology an apt name, something that brings things together, which Bluetooth technically does, right? And so in this sense, because of what King Harold Bluetooth did, they thought it was apt, and so they did it. But there's a little bit more to it than that, though. And this is the interesting part, is the actual symbol, right? It has a little bit of a hidden secret. Of course, I've spoken about my love for ARGs and Oh, and cults, which I'll speak about a little bit later. But anyway, apparently the Bluetooth logo has 2 letters, and they're the Nordic runes for H, Harold, and B for Bluetooth. So it stands for Harold Bluetooth.
So it's 2 runes in one, because I know of the B, and that's it.
It's 2 runes in one. Yeah, it's a mix of H and B. Isn't that cool? So I mean, think about it. It's become this ubiquitous technology that everybody just uses, and when you see that symbol, you know it means Bluetooth. But now, you know a little bit more about it. Hey, a little bit more of a little, Nordic tinge to your daily tech.
That's
little
cool,
tidbit to talk to people about.
That's super cool. Yeah,
we're going to move on to something that I'm very excited to speak about. And that is Marvel's Loki. So my family and I, we just finished binging season 1 of Loki. And it is exceptional. It is an incredible show. So we're all big fans of Marvel. We enjoy the Marvel Universe and, the movies and that kind of thing. And, their move into TV has been an interesting one to watch. Namely because, the WandaVision show, which was incredible, was also a once-off. Because both, Vision is dead and Wanda Maximoff needs to star
spoilers.
In future. He was dead in Endgame. Jeez. It's like years ago already. Anyway, so it's interesting how they've done it, because even Falcon and the Winter Soldier was a once-off. It was just to bridging the gap and to show us how the Falcon becomes the new Captain America.
Yeah.
Now, Loki is ever so slightly different. Now, I was fully expecting it to be this in the same vein. A once-off season of something, and that's it. But the the finale has a very small, it's not even an end credit scene, I suppose, but it's just a little thing that pops up and it says, Loki will return for season 2. Yep. And when I saw that, I was like, that is fantastic. I'm very, 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 very happy to see that. So to try and make this somewhat brief, Loki takes place in 2012. So I think it was the first Avengers film, right? With the Battle of New York.
Yes.
Yes. It takes place there, whereby we all know that in Endgame, they all go back in time using the Infinity Stones, and then they try to get the Tesseract, and in so doing, they accidentally allow Loki to escape. Now, what that happens and what you find out when you start watching the show is that he was never meant to escape, as you know. We all know he never escaped in the timeline that we're used to. So his new escape causes a branch in what you eventually come to realize is a universal timeline. A timeline that is being kept by the 3 masters of time, and they ensure that that breaks in the timeline don't happen, because if they do, it can be devastating. There's much more to it than that. I'm trying to do my best to not necessarily avoid spoilers, but just to, it's such a great watch. It's so good. I don't want to, I'd love for those of you who do watch it to experience the revelations as they come. Right? So
what I'm hearing is that they're sending in Doctor Who to stop this Loki from messing.
Do you mean Doctor Strange instead of Doctor Who?
No, not Doctor Strange, because he's with Spider-Man somewhere. Okay,
hold on. So the whole point that I'm getting at is that Loki doing what he did causes a branch in the timeline, and as a result, he gets captured by the TVA, which is the Time Variance Authority. All right, and then he gets taken to this place in the middle of time. I guess nobody knows where it is exactly. And it turns out that he is now a variant of the Loki that we know of. Meaning that because, the time branched off, he became something else, right?
Yeah.
And then this is all happens in the first episode, within the first couple of minutes. So I'm not really messing anything up here.
Mm-hmm.
And so you then learn that Loki is a variant, and the show then deals with that. what does it mean to be a variant? How different are you to the other Loki? Are there more Lokis out there? I mean, if this Tom Hiddleston Loki got purged from his timeline, doesn't that mean that other Lokis from other multi-dimensional timelines could have got purged as well? Needless to say, the show does a phenomenal job of looking at all of those aspects. And there's a really cool revelation towards the middle and the end about the people who work in the TVA and what the 3 time masters actually mean, including, and don't Google this if you don't want to have spoilers, all about He Who Remains, which is a brand new character that I've just learned about. And from what I understand, the little bit of knowledge that I do have of Marvel's increasingly growing Marvel Cinematic Universe and their histories, is He Who Remains is going to tie into both the Eternals movie as well as Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Okay.
I won't say who or why, but the little bit that I've seen, it's very, very interesting. And the show is superbly acted. The visual effects are decent. They're a little bit more TV than they should be for movies. And overall, it's just an incredible show that draws you in to the mystery and does a great job of just giving you little bits that you know, and you keep wanting to know more, and it is so worth binging. I would have hated to have watched this week by week.
Okay. That's cool. That's
basically, Loki is exceptional, and if this is the kind of quality we can expect from future Marvel shows, specifically what I mean in the sense of taking a character and allowing them to thrive in their own way, in their own stories, then consider me very excited. Because, you know, like I said, it's a departure now from Falcon Winter Soldier and WandaVision, you know, which were one-offs. We know Loki's getting a second season, and I am genuinely excited to know where it's going to go because of how it ties into everything, but also more so because of what they've set up and the variants that exist. And I want to know more. I'm very excited to see what happens. It's very, 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 very good.
Okay. I wonder why then people are really divisive about the show on the internet.
Are they really?
Like, sure, the ratings are up there, but I've seen like many people come out in saying that it's not that great. It's overhyped and it doesn't make sense for many of them.
Yeah, perhaps one of the things that might be leading towards that is how we've previously seen how powerful Loki is. Yeah. All right. That is very much thrown to the wayside in the show. Now, they do a decent enough job of explaining why his magic doesn't work in the TVA. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
But then the show doesn't always take place in the TVA. So then you're left wondering, how powerful is Loki really? You know, and the show therefore makes viewers realize he's actually a lot less powerful than we've given him credit for in the movies. Well, and maybe that's what people are disliking, you know?
To be fair, it sounds like the show is also taking Loki much... they're showing Loki much more raw than like he should be, closer to the comics more than he was made out to be. Because I know, at least from my knowledge of Loki in the MCU, most of his power came from his staff, and the staff had the Tesseract. And then when he lost that, he got caught, and then that's the version of Loki in the show now, as far as I know. So remember, he's just a god of mischief, nothing else.
Look, that's a very astute observation, Edward. Look, I personally thoroughly enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. There were moments where I was a bit like, oh, surely he can get out of this. You know, why is he not doing anything? But overall, the things that happen, I thought it was great. I really, really thought it was great. You know, it's not too far removed from like the original Doctor Strange movie, you know, where he goes and he fights that like god, that like literal demon that like comes in the movie. Whatever, I forgot what it was called.
Dormammu.
Right? Dormammu, there we go. Like, if you can get bored on that you can totally get bored in what's happening in Loki.
I would imagine so.
So it's not that far removed from what you would expect from a Marvel movie or a Marvel TV show. It is very fantasy though. Like a part of me wants to say sci-fi, but it's kind of I really do think it's more fantasy though. So yes, there's some sci-fi elements to it, but it's more fantasy. It's more high fantasy in the sense of it's got to do with magic, but then time and timelines and multiple dimensions, and it's clear they're setting up the future. I don't want to say what happens at the end in the finale, but it's very clear that Loki is behind everything that's happening in Phase 5.
That's cool. Remember the good old days when fantasy and magic didn't exist in the MCU and it was just Tony Stark and his technology?
Look, I'm just so glad that Thor came in and modified it all, and Loki has been an incredible character throughout the movies, and he's still a great character. I would say he's less one-dimensional in the TV show. He's more nuanced. You see sides of him in the show that you just didn't see or you don't get to see in the movies because, simply put, he's never had a feature film to explore them. He's always been a sideline character, where Thor was the main and other characters were the main, and Loki just came in as comic relief. For a time he was the big bad, right? But then eventually comic relief. And so the show, in my opinion, even though it's not the same Loki, just that's something to very much remember. It's the same Loki, but not the same Loki.
It's 2012 Loki. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not 2019 Thanos dead Loki, right?
Yes.
And things happened between 2012 and 2018 or whatever the case is.
Or rather, it is since 2012, since he first was caught, we saw the character develop throughout the movie.
Yes.
Because he changed. He became a really stand-up guy by 2019.
Correct.
And now 2012, that was still the mischievous Loki. So I assume that's going to play a big role.
It's a bit of both. So not to give too much away, but he does eventually, it all happens in the first episode. So this 2012 Loki watches through his tape of the original Loki who dies by Thanos' hand.
He watches the movies.
I know it sounds funny, but like he literally watches it and that actually gives him, can you imagine how emotional that must be? Imagine watching yourself, your future self, and then your death. That's like, how do you get over that,
Yeah.
So this Loki, in some ways, is that Loki that we know, but now also is a little bit different. And that's because he has to be,
Yeah.
Now, with that in mind, we know that Loki has great hair.
Luscious hair.
And he doesn't really seem to age all that much, Edward. So with that in mind, though, I would imagine Loki could be quite stressed. And I want to know if you knew that stress causes grey hair. Of course we knew.
I knew that.
I was trying to do some sort of a random ass segue there, but I realized that this segue is better for the next point, but I tried. Okay. So we all know that there's a link between stress and grey hair, all right?
Yeah.
But did you know that there is also a link between de-stressing and hair color returning?
So if I'm going through a bad rut, I'm going to have like a patch of hair at the moment I go happy again. I'm going to have like this white stripe in my hair that grows out, is what you're saying.
So it's a very interesting topic that some scientists have looked into, right? And what they found is that, yes, 100% stress can cause grey hairs. However, just because your hair is growing grey from stress doesn't mean it's permanent. So what they actually found is that repigmentation is a thing. And that can happen from being very stressed to becoming calm. You
Calm
see?
like you should be now.
Yes, like I am now, because Cobalt keeps opening the door and it's irritating me beyond belief. And I'm doing my very best to lead the conversation on so that you can keep talking so that I can close the door, Edward. Because I can't speak and do it at the same time, just in case you were wondering why it's remained open all this time. For those of you who are watching the video.
Well,
Edward, so why don't you talk to us a little bit about what you think grey hair means and
you're getting old.
No, you know what I'm saying now, because I'm going to go and close the door, so you need to handle this. Thank you.
I don't know anything about grey hair other than it stresses people out. Well, it's caused by being stressed out and it's caused by age. I know balding is also caused by age, but that's not the case.
Balding is it's caused a little bit more from hormonal changes, specifically with like testosterone kind of thing.
Yeah.
Look, the TLDR of this is less stress, better hair.
Well, that makes sense, but
with all the stuff that's going on in South Africa at the moment.
Well,
actually, look, wait. I actually have something to add to this quickly. I've got something to add to this quickly. So, I had no grey hairs, all right, until after our house burnt down. Then they in the 6 months after that, they've started appearing.
See, but there are two ways you can look at that now, Hans. One is obviously the stress. The other is you obviously got older.
No, what are you talking about? I'm forever 28.
Okay, fine. So you're forever 28, but the days have moved on, and you're still 28. So something's got to give.
Look. In all fairness, it is obviously possibly also my age, but the coincidence between the fact that major life event happened, and then us also remember getting attacked early last year.
I think
I have seen the grey come out a lot more than it was previously. And now, it could also very well be an age thing, but I just feel that that's partially more the case, especially like in my beard. Like I have a very dark beard, but I've seen like,
and you've noticed light spots.
I've seen some little bits that are peeking out now, and I'm like, well, that's new.
Yeah. See, I was about to say, like, I don't have explicitly grey. Well, I do like have one that keeps coming out around there, but I do. Some of my patches of my beard are growing lighter. Like this one specifically, it looks almost grey if you look quick.
This would be a good thing for CRISPR. CRISPR your hair to never lose color.
I don't know. I don't mind that. I don't mind.
I would be happy to do
grey.
it. Because this actually leads me to something else. So for the longest period of time, trying to solve hair loss, right? That's what. See that you could CRISPR your hair to never fall out of your head, and for your hair to fall out all of the places you don't want it, like your ass. Okay, that'd be a wonderful CRISPR.
All the hair go up top.
basically, let it fall off everywhere except for your neck up. Okay. Anyway,
we are monkeys.
What they've actually done is there are stem cell solutions to bringing back hair color, and I thought that was very interesting because we all know that stem cells can be used for a lot of things. Now imagine some like stem cell shots in CRISPR. I think the future is going to be very exciting. Very exciting. Hey?
This will get big pushback. Lots and lots of people will be like,
no,
don't modify our
only if you're like
bodies.
genetically
This is the
engineering your
devil's
child
work.
before it like pops out, maybe. But afterwards, if you want to cybernetically or genetically enhance yourself.
Let me give many of those people a lesson. Simply drinking coffee genetically modifies your body before your child pops out.
Wait, excuse me? Tell me how. Tell me more. No.
You are what you eat, and you are what your parents
I thought you were giving me some like amazing coffee factoid.
No, everything affects your sperm. No, it affects your
There
genes.
is truth to what you're saying, and there have been studies into genetic predisposition of sports. I don't know if you know about this, whereby they look at like rugby players' children and then determine their proficiency for the sport or the skill that their parents were very proficient in. And what they've actually found is there is genetic traits passed down through your genetic material. And I think that's absolutely fascinating. So it's not to say that if you're a genius, your children will be a genius, but it's more to say like if you're musically proficient, or if you have a proficiency for languages, there's a good chance your child will as well, or one of your children will.
Yeah.
So that in itself is fascinating, right?
It's amazing.
It explains my hair loss. But anyway.
Maybe that's why Black Widow was such a good killer.
Yes, especially because she kept changing hair all the time. Thank you for that wonderful segue, Edward. First time in a very long time that I have been impressed.
Look, I'm trying.
Yes, Edward is spot on. So we all know Marvel's Black Widow. She's been the sideline Avenger for a very, very long time, for over a decade, actually.
Well, there are two of those, but okay.
We've been talking about Hawkeye. Nobody cares about that bitch. Anyway, so listen, he's getting a TV show. Okay, I somehow feel that's a lot more of a no, it's not animated. It's physical.
Is it? Are you sure?
Yes. What's his name? He's reprising his role.
Okay, good.
I think it's unfair because I think ScarJo deserves far more. If anybody deserved a TV show, Black Widow deserves a TV show because that would have made me relive my Alias days. And I've been dying for an Alias TV show. Anyway.
But she got a movie. Isn't that better? Isn't that like...
sort of, I guess. more so, it's like she finally got the big screen treatment that everybody's been hoping for because other than Captain Marvel, which nobody cares about, Black Widow is the actual female on the Avengers team that people have been wanting to learn more about. Not just from her background and that, but what made her who she is and where else does she fit into the universe. And in that sense, the Black Widow film from Marvel is very, very, very good. In fact, we actually have a new writer on Famous, so shout out to Ariel. Hello, if you're listening. She rated the movie as exceptional, and although I somewhat disagree a little bit with her rating, I do understand why she gave it such a high rating. And the reason for that is because Black Widow is testament to strength of a female character. She is, she's physically strong. She's mentally strong. She knows how to lead. And she's just an incredible character that fans have long wanted to know so much more about, and yet she never got a film. Now, the recent Black Widow film, unfortunately, is not an origin story, but it's also an origin story.
I get that.
What I mean by that is like, if you remember Iron Man, it was very clearly laid out. Like it starts with Tony Stark, billionaire, whatever. He eventually gets captured, and he has to create the tech, blah blah blah. Now, what Black Widow does instead is it shoehorns in a missing period between Civil War and I think Age of Ultron. It's either Age of Ultron or Infinity War, right? I think Age of Ultron. And it's basically after like the Sokovia Accords and stuff like that. The King of Wakanda gets attacked and all of that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So it takes place in that period to show you what Natasha Romanoff did when she wasn't with the Avengers. Because as you all know, every time there's a new Avengers solo film, the other Avengers are nowhere to be seen. And you're always like, why? All right?
Yeah.
So this is partly explaining why. So in this particular instance, it's because the Avengers are kind of split up. There's the Sokovia Accords and so on and so forth. Actually, I think it's just before. Yeah, it is just before Age of Ultron, right? Because it's after Age of Ultron, because Sokovia happened afterwards. It happened during Age of Ultron.
It happened.
There we go. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
in the end.
So it's between Civil War and Infinity War. Okay, because Civil War happened after Age of Ultron. So anyway, Marvel timeline. Anyway, with that said, it does do a wonderful job of further fleshing out her character as a young person. So you see a young Natasha Romanoff. You see a little bit of what happens to her, but there isn't enough of what happens to her. Do you get what I'm seeing? You know what I'm saying? They allude to many of the things that happen to her when she's young and how she gets pulled into becoming a Black Widow and that. But I personally would have loved to have seen a movie almost in the vein of Red Sparrow. I don't know if you've seen that
Okay.
film.
Yeah.
With
yeah.
the lady from Hunger Games. I've forgotten her name now.
Mm,
You know who I'm talking
me
about.
too. Yes.
So she stars in Red Sparrow, which is almost a very similar concept, except that movie is a little bit more X-rated. All right. But that's the kind of origin I would have loved to have really seen from Natasha Romanoff. You know, how she actually becomes the Black Widow and then defects. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, this movie is still fantastic because what this movie does instead is it showcases her family. You know, how was she brought up? Did she have parents? Does she have siblings? So you see all of those, and then the movie embellishes upon that by showcasing how family is so much more important than being a caped crusader. And I love that aspect of it because it's far more grounded of a development for a character than almost any of the other Marvel origin stories
That's
that we've
cool.
seen, you know?
Mm.
And from that perspective, it almost doesn't feel like a Marvel movie. Because sure, it's got incredible humor, but I just mean, you know, it's less superhero-y and more family dynamic mixed with the situation that they were in and what they need to do to destroy the situation. And overall, there is a much bigger thread that is also tied throughout the film, and it has to do with human trafficking, specifically young women. And although it's a very thin thread, what I really, really, really enjoyed about it is how the film didn't push woman empowerment to the forefront. Now, I believe in empowering women more so than many of the other causes out there because I feel that women or as a gender have been persecuted far longer than pretty much anything else. All right.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that about this movie is that it wasn't gratuitous in your face, and that wasn't what the whole movie was about. So it wasn't like Wonder Woman 1989, where it was all like girl power, girl power, girl power, and then the movie was rubbish. Not rubbish because of girl power, girl power, girl power, just rubbish because the movie was rubbish.
Yeah, it's just bad.
It was just not very
bad.
good. But what was sad about that, though, is that it was a bad film pushed as a means of furthering women empowerment, but it did such a bad job of it.
Mm.
Whereas Black Widow, they don't push that as, you know, empowerment. They're just like, you know what? Yes, they are strong. They are intelligent. We don't have to say so because you can see it. And
Exactly.
I loved that aspect of it. It was like one of the big things for me, and this really made me, it made me quite a little bit emotional. So obviously I watched it with my parents, and my mom exclaimed towards the end, she got so like, she loved the film, and she doesn't really enjoy, you know, Marvel action, you know, that kind of thing.
Superhero stuff, yeah.
And she exclaimed, she goes, wow, look at that. Look how powerful women can be. And I just thought to myself, how wonderful, firstly, okay, that this is the message she got from the movie without it constantly telling you about it. All right? Meaning they did a perfect job, in my opinion. But secondly, how it was a bit sad for me because I was like, my mom obviously was brought up and grew up in a very different era, a different time where maybe, you know, the voice of strong women were not as prevalent as they are today. And so it's why I'm really happy that movies like this exist. That young women today, or of any gender really, because the movie is about empowerment for anyone, but specifically showing that if you're a woman, you can do anything. You really can.
That's cool.
You know, and I loved that aspect of it. So like, anyway, I loved it. And when I think about it like that, I would then say, absolutely, the movie is exceptional because it gives you a message of empowerment without making it the focal point. And that is a very difficult thing to do properly. And I think they did a very good job in Black Widow.
That's cool.
Well, I mean, they bloody well have to have, right? After 10 years of pushing her to the sidelines, okay? It's the least they can bloody well do.
She was an integral part of the Avengers, okay? Without her, Endgame wouldn't have happened.
Well, you see,
she kept everyone together.
Yes, that's the other beautiful part about it, is that when you watch this movie and you see everything she goes through and you see her family and that, it makes her sacrifice in Endgame just that much more like, powerful, you know? anyway, I thought it's a great film. It's a great film. If you haven't had a chance to watch it yet, do it. There's some fantastic actors in it as well, including David Harbour, Florence Pugh, and Rachel Weisz. Specifically Florence Pugh, because there's a cool after credit scene. I do think that Pugh is most likely going to be taking up the mantle of Black Widow going forward. And if that's the case, I think she's going to do a fantastic job because she was excellent in this movie. In many scenes, she stole the show. I mean, let me just leave it at that.
Yeah. That's the sister character.
Yes, so in the film, she's Yelena, which is supposed to be Natasha's younger sister. Cool. And then they reunite in the film, and it's good. I also don't know much about Taskmaster and stuff. So I know a lot of people online are hating on it, saying the film ruined Taskmaster, blah blah blah. I'm just like, well, I didn't know about the lore beforehand, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So don't go into it thinking it's everything you know. I mean, Marvel is allowed to make changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A friend and I recently spoke about Taskmaster in particular because I don't see the hate for him. I see the love for him. People are saying, "Oh, we need more originality like Taskmaster in the MCU," and I told him that, well, as original as going as far back as 40 years in the comics, I guess, because he was literally first seen 40 years ago in the comics. But then it got me thinking that the MCU has long since not been an offshoot of the comics anymore. It's a thing of its own thing.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what people mean when they either hate it or love it. It's more a fact of even if it's an original comic thing, the different kind of villain Taskmaster is what's needed in the MCU now. Because I believe he's very grounded.
How so? Because I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything about Taskmaster.
No, neither do I. I don't know a lot. I just know that he was first issued in 1980, I believe, in the Avengers comics. He was an original... I believe he was a Thor villain. No, he was a Spider-Man villain, I think. I only remember that. And all I know is he was this guy who used tools. He's basically an evil Batman, I guess you could say. And I think that's what people mean, which is that he's this grounded villain. He's not a super magical villain, Maybe that's what people mean.
I don't know. I don't want to say anything because
rather not.
Yeah. You need watch the film. I'm curious. Watch it when you get a chance. And then we can speak about what you thought of the Taskmaster in there versus maybe even the game. Because you did also review Marvel's Avengers from Square Enix.
The game.
So.
Yes. And he was in that as well, but tiny role.
Now, with that with finishing this Black Widow review, we're moving on to changing Borgs. I don't know what this is about, Edward, so I'm sorry, there's no way that we could do a proper segue into this. So just talk to us about
Well, you could say the Taskmaster is changing the MCU like the Borgs assimilate the civilizations they touch or whatever in Star Trek.
But not really, but anyway.
I don't know. I don't know anything about Black Widow. Anyway, I found this super interesting thing that scientists found DNA sequences of 19 different extrachromosal, what do you call it? Not elements, beings, I guess, extrachromosal beings, which they call Borgs, because it seems like these Borgs, they assimilate every other cell they touch and they come in contact with. Which means, for those who don't know, assimilate is basically to learn, to copy, I guess. Is a good term.
What I'm seeing here is they're extra chromosomal elements, okay?
Yes.
So meaning that these DNA sequences are found outside of the chromosomes that lie within the nucleus of a mast cell.
Yes.
Interesting,
so basically,
Edward. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so basically they exist outside of what we are used to. They're brand new to science. There are 19 examples of them found, and they've all been sequenced into about 4 categories and color-coded.
Gosh. I feel like we don't need one of these. I feel like
it sounds scary, but the scientists that found them actually think that they can aid with climate change. Because the reason they can assimilate other cells and genes, they also show that they share elements of, I forgot the word now, it's a long word, but methanoprodines, which are basically methane, I guess. Yeah. It's little cells that can change, that can draw from methane.
So I see that whatever these Borgs are that you're talking about, right? They share genes and proteins with other organisms that oxidize methane called methanotrophs.
Oxidize, that's the word I was looking for.
There we go.
Yes. Which means
they then belong to the genus methanoprodines.
Yes. Which means essentially they think they can help change the climate for the better. They can take all of the greenhouse gases out of the soils and stuff we use in our farming.
Every week on Reddit, there's some miraculous discovery like this. And then it just disappears into the ether and you never hear about it again. And I always have to wonder to myself, what is happening? Like, I feel like we've already cured cancer like 20 times.
I think the reason they disappear is because, unlike the mRNA stuff that was super fast-tracked, these things go into a cycle of 50 years of research. And that, I think that's why we don't hear of them unless they make big discoveries again. And they do think that it must be noted, we don't know, no one knows anything about these Borgs other than they were found what they can change, what they can assimilate.
And that they increase the overall amount of methane that these little methane producing bacteria.
They can, yes. Yeah, so what they want to do is they want to see if they can put them essentially in the soils, which have already been changed to aid the Earth to not break the ozone layer. They want to see if they can put them in there in order to, at the end of the day, fix the ozone, to fix greenhouse gases.
The whole thing about these things is that they eat methane.
It seems
they
like
oxidize methane. That's what I mean. So essentially, by oxidizing methane, they're like essentially eating it from the atmosphere, right?
Yes. So
we all know that methane is a huge issue and one of the major contributors to global warming.
Exactly. So the fact that they show signs that they oxidize methane and they can learn things from other cells, that's what they want to do now and basically create.
Okay, so they want to create these, or they want to harvest these Borgs to further enhance these methanotrophs to increase their abilities to oxidize methane. That's what I'm getting from this.
Yes.
That sounds great in theory.
It does, but it also sounds scary.
Get a mutant methanotroph, or whatever it is,
methanotroph,
that then goes and either gobbles up all the methane, killing us, because, we have a very balanced...
We do need some.
a very balanced, atmosphere. Or does the exact opposite and starts pushing it out, right?
That's the thing. And that's why I found the name so interesting. They've been called Borgs, like in Star Trek.
Yes.
Now, my knowledge about Star Trek isn't that great because I was never a Star Trek guy. I was a Stargate guy.
Star Trek is amazing.
But aren't Borgs evil?
So they're considered evil because all the Borgs do is assimilate. So they'll go to a brand new world or whatever, and then they'll take over the planet and assimilate all the organic matter into the Borg hive mind. Therefore, not eradicating, but that civilization then technically disappears because they then become part of the Borg.
Yeah.
So then, because then Borg is all, and then the Borg have these knowledge banks for everything. So in that sense, yes, they're, I suppose, considered somewhat evil because they're taking over like cultures and entire civilizations without allowing them to have free will.
See, that's what I'm afraid of.
No,
Why
I don't
call
think,
them Borgs?
I think it's just a cool name because remember the whole thing that you're talking about here, right? Is that
Mm-hmm.
these Borgs, okay,
Yeah.
they share the similar structure to methanotrophs. The difference is that when they assimilate one of those things, those methanotrophes,
Anything.
they then take on the capabilities of the methanotroph, and then it's actually more efficient. That's the
Yeah, they
interesting
can be
thing
designed
about
to be more efficient.
That's the most interesting thing about this. Who knows? Who knows? I mean,
I just found this
look.
interesting.
We already know that cellular agriculture is going to do is going to go a really long ways to reducing, at least we hope, methane excretion into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Because if we can produce meat in a lab, there's no need for animals to be raised. All right.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's maybe a much longer term scenario. Maybe this is a quicker short term thing. By making more of these Borg thingamabobs, they can oxidize more methane quicker, you know?
Maybe.
I don't know. I'm just thinking, if we go and we try and do this and maybe we make like a super Borg and then we have problems. That's what I'm worried about.
I agree, because obviously we know nothing about them other than they exist. We don't know if they are viruses or if they are plantoid type cells. That's the thing. It's weird.
Okay.
That it's brand new, but they already have these plans for them, these grand plans.
This sounds exactly the same as when they go and dig in the Antarctic ice and then they want to thaw the bacteria that they've just found. And I'm like, y'all, that stuff has been put away.
Don't do that.
That stuff is not around anymore for good reason, because there's a very good chance we're not going to be able to combat it. Okay?
Yes.
Ain't nobody needing some 200 million year old dinosaur wiping bacteria back out on Earth. Okay? Please. That's one of the theories for those who don't know.
It must be said that this the entire research around these Borgs, it hasn't been peer reviewed yet as well.
Okay, so maybe there's more to come from these things. Maybe they're not
I bet there will
as alien as they're being made out.
Let's hope not. That's the conclusion. Let's hope not. It's all we can do is hope.
Well, Edward, moving on from that, I see you have some more NSFW.
Yeah.
Specifically in terms of more love languages?
Yes.
Haven't we covered this already?
We have. But because of our conversation last week about love languages and stuff, I actually went and did a little bit of digging. I didn't find much except for this website, which anyone can go to and actually do quizzes. Now, they have 3 quizzes available on this website. So the website's called 5lovelanguages.com. And it's literally just, you click on them and you do a little interactive quiz, which you just choose
I actually
options.
see here they have, it's not just love. They also have apology language and anger assessment.
Yes. So basically you do this and you're given a result, obviously. So I went ahead and I did all 3 of them. And according to how they were, I also wrote down just my quick notes on them. So basically the love language thing is not necessarily the thing you do, but it's the language you are most susceptible to. They say it's your love language. I don't think so, because it didn't really fit me, but it fit the way I prefer to I don't know, to be loved is the best term, I guess. So in the love language quiz, I got the result of words of affirmation, which means I work best with words of affirmation, which is according to them what they say. And then in the apology one, I think it's a little bit, it's too nuanced. Okay, so going through this one, right. I got the fact that I have to my apology language is accepting responsibility. Which I don't know. I think it's too elaborate for just to fit to work with everyone. This one, and then the third one is the anger one, which intrigued me the most. Now, this one isn't a language or anything. It's just telling you how good you manage your anger. Yes. And to me, my result was doing well, but can improve. Okay, so that's what I got. It was the yellow one. And I think this one is a little bit too, where the previous one was super elaborate. This one is super generalized. So I don't know how accurate those are. I am curious what you'll get once you do this. There are lengthy quizzes.
I wish you told me to do this before, because
Yeah.
I would have loved to have actually then discussed this with you, because I'm trying to do it now, so I'm not actually listening to what you're saying.
That's
but
fine.
I realize it's really long. I'm not even like a quarter of the way through the thing. So I'm gonna just close out of it. But next time, Ed, please, if it's something like this, you got to tell me to do it in advance, that we can then talk about it. Because now
I thought about that, but I only found this yesterday morning, and I didn't. It flew by my mind throughout the day, but it's quite interesting.
Normally do.
Sometimes. I just thought it's interesting for our listeners to go back to and maybe tell us what they get, or if they want or not.
So, okay, so maybe you've mentioned it already, and I was just too busy trying to do the quiz. Did you say that this affirms what you thought you identified with in the previous episode? Or does this
in a way, this tells you what you are most susceptible to. I think what works best with you, not what you work with, and not what you use with other people, I think. Because it doesn't feel that the questions they ask is not the kind of questions like what you would do. It's more along the lines of what you would like.
It's yeah. Okay, but see, but then they do go together though. So if we think back to one of the previous love languages, right, where your love language might be gift giving, right? Then you would assume that when you answer these questions, you receiving a gift would link up with what you previously thought from the previous time we spoke about it. Do you see what I'm saying?
In my head, it works a little bit differently. In terms of, if someone gives me a gift, I would feel loved, fine. But I would not necessarily give gifts, because I don't believe in giving gifts. To me, it's not a thing that I like to do, because I think they are material. Yes. I don't think they are...
Yes. Yes. But then in that scenario, you would then answer here, if the option was receive a gift or a hug from someone, you would choose hug. Just as an example. Don't look at it literally.
So they do go hand in hand.
So yes,
I get you.
From the little bit that I've seen now, because I do wish that I had been able to do this beforehand, it looks like, to an extent, maybe not completely, they are like, to me, it would be interesting to see if what you thought you were before correlates with what they think you are now. Now, unfortunately, I mean, the little bit that I've done now, I can't really give enough of an opinion of, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But interesting nonetheless. I'm curious, is this scientifically backed, this love language quiz thing?
I don't think it is. I didn't.
But at least it's not a BuzzFeed one, so at least you're not gonna like pop up and be like, you love like Simba does or whatever.
No, it feels like this is nice and grounded. They put a lot of thought into this one, which I just
find it interesting that they did more than just love, though. Like, they have apology and anger.
Yeah, it's weird, but I dig that they do have more. It's not just this one thing, which is nice to have. I think it's nice to see that. My anger is doing well, but can improve. I guess it's nice to know that. I guess it's just a cool little thing I found.
Okay, well, maybe once you've managed these languages, either from the previous time we've spoken about it or now, it could make you go for longer.
Maybe it could, actually. So I found a list from the Cosmopolitan, no less.
Oh, goodness.
I know. But hear me out. It's quite interesting.
You're literally giving us a resource from a magazine that all in the span of its 40 pages tells you to lose weight, what cake you should eat, and, how to lose a man and get one. Like,
yes.
What?
Yeah. Listen, they're trying all the bases. I appreciate that.
Something for everyone, right?
Yeah. Okay, so I get what you're saying, but I do find this list quite intriguing. It's a list of 19 ways that you can try and lengthen your sex, I guess, if you feel it's either too short, or if you even have maybe ED. There are many ways they list that you can lengthen it, which is basically just all of them, I guess.
This
Not
is
in retrospect.
very similar to what we've already spoken about.
Very similar, but there are a few things. So to
I see
TLDR,
one or
basically a lot
two
of the
extras
list.
here. So, I mean, I know that, like, you know, we have previously in the past, we've spoken about breathing and toys and foreplay and, you know, rubbing one out before the actual event.
Before sex,
like, we've covered most of the basics. I see you have highlighted a few. I'm assuming these are the main ones you want to talk about today.
Exactly.
A little bit different. Okay.
So among the list, as you said, there are even getting a perpendicular, using perpendicular sex positions, which is just, you know, well, we mentioned that in the shorter penis episode a while back.
Yeah.
But one of these, well, a few of these, particularly to begin with number 3, is to dabble in some CBD fun. Now, this one stood out to me because I know you and I spoke about CBD and sleep earlier this week.
Yes. So we haven't mentioned it on the podcast, but mainly because we don't talk about lack of sleep anymore, because y'all just know that this is not the norm.
Just a given.
But I really, really haven't been in the last couple of weeks. I'm just exhausted. And so I've been reading about benefits of CBD. Now, CBD with minus the THC, because THC is the thing that makes you go cray cray. And I'm curious to know if it will help. I have ordered, we're waiting, but because of the looting and riots and stuff, I'm not sure when it'll arrive. But yeah, when it does, I'll let y'all know if it helped with this too. No,
well, yeah, maybe it
who am
might.
I kidding? It's lockdown. Ain't nothing happening.
So, well, according to sex toy company Lioness, 73% of their surveyed participants, now we don't know how many people there were that were surveyed, just 73% of them agreed that cannabis oil increased the length of their partnered sex and increased as much by 51%.
You know?
So let's say...
No, but that makes sense, right? Because if you think about... I mean, okay. This is ever so slightly... I don't know if it's related or not. I have read previously about people who smoke cannabis, how they actually end up with ED. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I actually
and
knew
it's
about
specifically, and it's specifically why it is often why they dissuade teens specifically from smoking cannabis, because it can can interrupt that. No, really, it can interrupt their growth cycle in that.
Instead of going, oh, cannabis is a gateway drug, they should say cannabis makes you have less sex in your old age.
Boom. That's me telling
you.
What
about
that's not going to stop you. That's not going to stop you from doing it. I don't know.
Like weed breaks your peen. Weed breaks your peen. I'm going to put that on a sign somewhere outside.
Are you
one.
Finally embracing your old man status?
Oh, of course. I don't like anyone.
Get off my lawn.
Exactly. I'm that guy. And then moving down to number 5, we have them tap into lower levels of arousal. Now, them being your spouse who maybe doesn't last that long, or maybe even yourself who doesn't last that long, because, and this is interesting to me because it's something that I think I suffered with a while ago as well. Now, when I say a while ago, I mean 10 years ago. But it's basically being so hyper aroused that you just don't last at all in bed. So, meaning you're hyped, you're going into your first set.
It's the expectation, which then ruins
ruins the delivery, I guess. Basically, just chill out. Essentially, is what they're saying.
So basically, the answer where weed would make you too mellow. If you're that hyper, get some weed. All of these play into each other because this specifically plays into practicing mindfulness, which is literally something we spoke about in a previous episode. Yeah.
Which is why I itemized that one. And then going down is try to focus on your partner's pleasure to take the pressure off. Now, this is something that everyone always say, but it's no one really understand what it means.
No, but Okay. Explain what you were. Yeah, explain what you mean.
So essentially, is instead of getting all up into it, getting all hyped again, like number 5, just try and focus solely on pleasuring your partner, on getting your partner aroused, getting him or her, done, I guess. And then in a way, that'll go back to you and your pleasure lasting longer. And that
But that's
goes
a
into
bit of a
both
double-edged
of your.
sword, though.
I know it is. And that's the
know?
thing, because at the end of the day, everyone's going to focus on their partner, aren't they?
Well, no, some people don't. But what I mean by that is, what if you're okay? Now, this is now all of a sudden we're going a little bit more like in depth into this. But like,
No, please do.
what if it's somebody who goes through life looking for affirmation?
Mm-hmm.
And so you with your partner and you're doing this kind of thing and they're just not responding, but not responding in a bad way, just not reaching the level of that they should be. You that might really make you feel terrible.
Yes.
Especially if you're an overachiever, you see?
See, and that's where it comes back into the fact that you need to find someone who's compatible with you. I think at the end of the day, if you're not happy, whether it's in bed, whether it's everywhere else, maybe as good as it seems, they are not the best for you. I think,
although it's not the be all and end all
mind,
either. Sometimes people have
not
better relationships, even though their sex lives are terrible.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. But in my mind, everything should just be good. If there are certain aspects that are not as good, what's the point? And then just below that is try training, which means just continue doing that. Continue.
Buy yourself a flashlight.
Yes.
And then be happy.
Yeah, teach yourself how to edge, which is another one going down. Edging is basically just almost reaching your peak and then not. Stopping, forcing yourself not to. Basically, train. It's the same as exercising.
Actually, the one really good thing about that is that's also to do with tantric. It's related.
That I can believe. And then number 13, we're skipping toys, we're skipping foreplay because we all know about those stuff. Number 13 says, take advantage of the men's refractory period. Now, that's obviously if there are a penis owner in your life. The refractory period is basically, for those who don't know, after you've ejaculated, the man essentially goes limp, is tired, he doesn't want to have the sex anymore.
I'm done, yo.
Yeah, he wants to go to bed is the cliche. But if you're up for a second round, try to do it as soon as possible, because if you're one of those guys who can get it up again real quickly, or if you just take a little 10-minute break, go have a little sandwich, or drink a glass of water.
I mean, it depends. If you were within like 30 seconds, you should be able to go again, like almost immediately after it.
No, the refractory period, the average is 2 to 3 minutes, apparently.
Oh, wow.
Because it's just your blood cells. They're not going to come back immediately, even if you ejaculated like in 30 seconds. So take advantage of that, because many men can get it up again sooner. And they say right after that, the sensitivity is basically long gone. You can go as much as you want until that returns, until the period has gone. And then obviously, let's say you're a premature ejaculator, then that's when that kicks in again. So you can maybe score 5 to 10 minutes of sex out of this just by taking advantage of your refractory period. Which is a good one. That's a good note, I believe. And then the last one that got me is to squeeze the tip. Squeeze the base of your partner's penis.
But you know this one that you're talking about, right? That's what those rings are for. You know that, right?
Yes,
Ideally.
Yeah, so the ring, it does the squeezing and it does the pleasuring of the clitoris and all that. This is just while you're pumping or whatever, and you feel like you're getting close, or rather, your partner is getting close. Just instead of doing, I don't know, just instead of laying there and being almost disappointed, just go in, have some fun with your hands, and do a gentle squeezing of the base. Apparently, that will lighten the load and get him going for longer.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, and I found that super interesting.
Can you do it to yourself, or do they need to do it to you?
No, I believe it's also to yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
I
Asking for
believe
a friend.
so. Yeah. No, I'm willing to try it out actually, because it's quite interesting to know that you can do that. I didn't know.
That's very cool. Yeah.
And then they go into the usual stuff like, again, the sex positions, the yoga, Pilates. It helps for Kegel exercises basically, and then also medication, which is just if your partner does suffer from ED or premature ejaculation, there is always scientific solutions, medical solutions for everything. And I believe all in science. I believe in, if you're not happy with something and it can be fixed by any means, fix it by any means.
Okay.
And yeah, that's the list.
And that's okay. So you're all for science and for fixing things with even medical means, right? Even medical. Okay. Yeah. Keep that in mind as we end. NSFW. Okay. We've spoken about some CBD, and you've been speaking about taking some other medication / drugs to help with whatever it is that's going on in your sex life or lack thereof. And so that brings me to the film Synchronic, starring that guy from 50 Shades of Grey, Jamie Dornan, and new Captain America, Anthony Mackie. Avoid. Just don't.
Look, the moment you mentioned Jamie Dornan, I know it was bound to be.
I mean,
crap.
He's not terrible, right?
The only movies I've seen of him are 50 Shades, and they are all crap.
Okay, look. A brief overview of Synchronic is it's about these two EMTs, and they consistently are helping the police try to bring people back to life who have been overdosing on this drug called Synchronic. And then from then on, and the movie's not super long. I think it's like an hour and 40 minutes or whatever. But for about a full hour, it's this weird ass drama of Anthony Mackie's character has cancer, but he's not telling anybody about it. And then they're consistently finding people that are taking the Synchronic drug and are either disappearing or weird things are happening to them. Like, they get stabbed with like this knife that is clearly doesn't look like it's from their dimension. All right, as weird as strange as that sounds. Or anyway, I'm just going to tell you because it's not worth watching. So the crux of the film is that these Synchronic pills allow you to time travel. And the way that they do that, they don't really explain it too well, but it's got something to do with your pineal gland in your brain or your pituitary gland or something like that. And if you take the pill while that part of your brain is still developing, it will transport you to another point in time and you'll never be able to come back. So what then also ends up happening is Anthony Mackie's character just so happens to have a brain tumor on exactly that piece of his brain. And so when he takes the Synchronic tablets, he gets transported to different places in time. And it's all about, depending on where you're standing, will determine where in time you get sent back. I know it's just as convoluted and stupid as it sounds, all right? The issue with the film is that it's shot like an art house film. Okay. In that, it's got this very unique look, very unique vibe, and it's like drama for like an hour and 15 minutes and then maybe 15-20 minutes of sci-fi. And it's just weird. It's this weird disconnect because it's just, do you know what it really felt like? It felt like a unnecessarily long episode of Black Mirror on Netflix, where it could have been absolutely condensed into like a 45-minute short story, but they decided to turn it into an hour and 40-minute movie instead. And, in so doing, it's slow, way too slow than it needs to be. and boring, because they're trying to develop these characters, but you just don't care about them that much for them to be developed. Like, what is it supposed to be? Is it supposed to be a time travel sci-fi, or are we watching a drama? Because it kind of wants to be a bit of both, but it just doesn't work as either. And eventually Jamie Dornan's daughter, of course, you find out that she took Synchronic and she's now disappeared. So then Anthony Mackie tries his best with the last remaining Synchronic in the universe because the scientist who's made it has died suddenly. So
okay.
He now has like 8 Synchronic pulls left or whatever to try and find Dornan's daughter in the past somewhere. And he goes and goes, and then eventually finds her. But then the way that the whole thing works is if you're not in the same spot that you were standing in when you were transmitted back to the past, by the time that the effect wears off and you have to be returned back to the future, you get stuck in the past.
Okay.
And so he gets injured in the final scene where he goes to rescue Dornan's daughter and naturally doesn't make it back. And that's the film in a nutshell.
Heart-wrenching.
That's the film in a nutshell. It's just...
Okay. That sounds convoluted AF.
It's... I kind of enjoyed the premise a little bit. The sci-fi bits of it were decent, actually. It's just the overall execution is just so bad. Like, if you're going to do the story of these pills that somehow send you into the past and whatever, make that the focus of the movie. Don't give me drama for an hour and 15 minutes about these cops that are best friends and the one doesn't tell him about the brain tumor. And it was just so like, what is happening? What is happening? This is stupid, Anyway, Synchronic, not worth your time at all, despite having an interesting premise. And unfortunately, this leads me on to another film that's really not worth it.
More disappointing.
I had
stuff.
very high... Yeah, I know. What a great way to end the episode, right? I had very high hopes for this film, and it's called Nomadsland. Starring Frances McDormand, who is an absolutely exceptional actress. Now, this movie is not terrible. It's shot beautifully. Again, very art house-like. But nothing happens. It's just...
Wait.
Yeah?
Is this the one where she goes around doing stuff?
Yeah. So, okay. So the premise of Nomadsland is Frances McDormand is this woman who has worked for this steel sheeting company for basically her entire life. And this company goes under, it closes. But now it's typical small town America whereby this company was so big, it was so massive, it even had its own area code. And obviously all the people that worked there all lived within that area code. So what that ends up happening is the sheet factory closes down and everybody loses their jobs, and that area code actually then gets cancelled. So nobody's allowed to live there anymore. I don't know, something to that effect. But long story short, all the people lose their jobs, they have no money, so what do you do? Okay. So then she takes it upon herself to become a modern nomad, from what I understand. She gets a caravan and she lives in it, and that's it. You watch her go from place to place, meeting different kinds of people, and that's it. That is the film. There is no...
Is that the plot?
There is no narrative. It's the weirdest thing. So I really enjoy documentaries and I very much enjoy dramas. What I do not enjoy is a drama shot like a documentary with zero narrative. And that is Nomadsland.
See, it's interesting to me because, number one, this film is getting rave reviews and it's rated as one of the best of 2020.
Do you want to know why? Do you want to know why?
Because America, I think.
First of all,
Don't you think?
It's Frances McDormand's portrayal, okay?
Okay.
It's believable. She comes across as a destitute woman who is living a nomad lifestyle. So You cannot fault McDormand in this role. She's exquisite. Okay, exquisite in the sense of a documentary feature featuring somebody that the cameras are following. That's what I mean.
Okay.
It's believable.
Yeah.
She comes across as that kind of a character.
Yeah.
Secondly, you are right. It is very American. And by that, I mean the film clearly showcases the plight of a poor American. Someone who cannot afford healthcare, who cannot afford ends meet, who does anything that they can to earn minimum wage, whether that's working for Amazon or being a cashier for a day or whatever the case is, okay? Because of that, I would imagine the film is highlighting something that cinema often doesn't look at, and that is the poverty in America. You know, we come from a third world country. We come from South Africa, which has a massive divide between the people who have and those who have not. And to the point where that's actually caused incredible emotions and strife in our country at the moment, where South Africa feels like it's burning, quite literally as well, not just figuratively. Yep. And so, you know, me as somebody who comes from a country like this, watching this movie, it feels so... You don't really know what poverty is. That's, you know, like, that's
They're trying to have
you know, the whole thing of, like, I don't mean that in a terrible way, because obviously poverty is poverty. It doesn't matter if you're from a first world nation or from a third world nation, right? But it feels, as Edward said, very American. This is American poverty. So Americans will watch this and be like, oh man. Me as a South African watching this is just like, what's so special about this lady living in a caravan? Because of what I can see, she has a caravan, which means she has a home, which means she has food and she can keep warm. That is a far cry from many of the people in South Africa, okay, who don't have even the basics like water on a daily basis. So, you know, it's just, I don't mean to be overly critical about it, okay? It's just that there's no narrative here. You know, very much like the other Oscar award-winning movie that we spoke about, Minari, right? Which I told you was like a snapshot of Korean life in, what was it, 80s America, 70s America, right? So this is effectively an hour and a half snapshot of modern day poor America, where you're just watching this lady go from town to town, motion to motion. You know, you have these beautiful exposition shots of her just walking in the desert as the sun is setting in the desert, and you're just like, okay. But there's nothing there.
I think the reason why there is nothing there is because this is based on a non-fiction book called Nomadsland: Surviving America in the 21st Century.
I did not know that it was based on a book. That's news to me.
It's literally just talking about living as a nomad. That's the book.
But you see, like, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with well, my biggest issue is that it's shot like a documentary, but it's not a documentary. So there's no one talking to you about what's going on. You know, there's no one explaining the hardships. It's just, here, watch this lady go through hardships. Okay. And it's now, weird. That's it.
Yeah. Like why?
Okay. So I do understand the Oscar buzz, all right? But at the same time, I don't. You know, something like, what was that film called? Years ago, it was Slumdog Millionaire. Now that's
a good movie.
Now that is a fantastic film.
Yes,
and that is how you portray discrepancies between haves and have-nots with the story. Yeah, and you know, if I look at that movie and I look at Nomadsland, there's a huge difference between the two, and I would just not recommend Nomadsland. Sorry. It's just, it just feels like, that. You know,
it sounds stupid.
We were so bored watching it. Like I said, it was just this woman and she's going through these terrible things. And yes, sure, it's terrible. But like, there's nothing, like, why do I care when we're already going through so much already in our own country? Do you get what I mean, right? Whereas Slumdog Millionaire had this beautiful story attached to it. You know, how this person went from rags to riches. Now, it's not that Hollywood always has to show rags to riches, okay? But don't make a Hollywood movie and shoot it like a documentary unless you're making a documentary. That's all I'm going to say about it. So yeah, those are 2 movies I wouldn't recommend. And thank you for getting to the end of on a more positive note, we have some cool things that are happening in the background, regardless of what's actually happening in the country at the moment. And one of those is that I am finally eligible for vaccination. So I will be going for it fairly soon. I have to just wait for my turn to come around. Although I am also going to try and see if I can do a walk-in. I won't just be myself. I'm going to be taking people that are in my life who are also eligible to go with. And I'm hoping my parents will join me too. And yeah, it's that part is very exciting. We're finally getting to, don't want to say the end of COVID, but it's nice to be able to maybe have the idea that normalcy exists after being in lockdown for a year and a half.
I cannot wait to stand near you and get 5G. I cannot wait for that.
Soon.
It's going to be amazing.
Soon, Edward. Yeah. I'll let you know what secret messages Bill Gates has for you. Okay, don't worry.
Okay, cool.
He'll obviously transmit them to me while I'm sleeping, and then I'll jot them down in the morning, and I'll let you know what he says.
Yeah, like in your dreams, Get a dream journal, because that's going to be...
Yes, exactly. Watch me be able to sleep after getting it.
Actually, I do think that will... Okay, so in all seriousness, I do think that will play a role in you being able to sleep better. Because you'll have less stress.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah, goodness knows we all stress enough as it is. And for those of you who are in South Africa and are listening, please note that we wish you all well, and we hope that whatever you're going through, that you get through it, because it's tough for a lot of people at the moment. Edward and I are more of the privileged few folk who are okay. We're helping in our own ways without needing to talk about it. But if you are out there and you are, if you've suffered, know that there are more people who want something better for this country than those who want to rip it apart. And that's my solemn message for the end of Gettle 65. Yep. Season 2, episode 23. Thank you for listening. Now, please go get some CBD oil so you can feel better after this.
Yeah, go enjoy some CBD. Ask your partner to do some exercises and squeeze your base or something.
Oh my gosh.
Enjoy yourself.
With that in mind, thank you once again for listening. And we look forward to seeing you all again for our next episode. So until then, ciao for now.
Bye.